Welcome to this episode of Sunny's Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is Katrina Ubell, CEO and founder of Weight Loss for Busy Physicians. In this episode, they chat about the inspiration behind her newest book, How to Lose Weight for the Last Time, leading yourself so that you can lead others by example, and so much more. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kayla. Over to you, Sunny.
Hi, Katrina. Thank you so much for coming to my show today.
Sunny, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so we are peers at Strategic Coach, and this whole discussion started while we were attending one of the Strategic Coach session. And, so it's very interesting the way you have kind of, you're going about this topic of, how to lose weight for the last time. And it's really interesting, and your background is very interesting, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But tell me about what inspired you to write this book?
Such a good question, because writing a book is not the easiest thing. Also, I think it's good when you don't know what you're even really getting into when you decide to do something like this. But I have really historically for the last many years really served just a very, very narrow sliver of the population. I've only worked with women physicians who are taking care of patients in clinical practice who want to lose weight permanently. And what I found is that, I have a podcast too called Weight Loss for Busy Physicians. And I found over the course of time that I was collecting and, I guess attracting a number of non-physician listeners. So in the reviews of the podcast, people would say, well, I'm not a doctor, but my doctor recommended that I listen to this. Or, I was looking for a weight loss podcast and I thought, oh, what's different for doctors? And sure, I'm not a doctor, but this totally applies to me too. And then people saying how much weight they've lost just listening to the podcast and applying what I teach. And so more and more people were saying, hey, would you ever consider working with people, or offering something to people who aren't doctors? And at the same time, I knew that doctors themselves have so many demands on them. I used to work as a pediatrician. The number of things that all the powers that be recommend that you talk to a family about in, one well visit, it's not possible. You need like an hour per appointment at least to talk about everything. And so I think a lot of doctors really they know that their patients are struggling with their weight. They know their patients are struggling with overeating, and they themselves don't know what else to offer to these people who are struggling, because they might be struggling even themselves. And even if they aren't struggling themselves with food or with alcohol, they still don't feel like they have good resources to offer to their patients. So I thought, well, in this way, right, like doctors will have an easy thing that they can refer their patients to. Anybody who's been interested in figuring out a way of losing weight that isn't punishing, doesn't require you to be starving all the time, doesn't involve a bunch of restriction and deprivation. I could help them, give them this information, even if ultimately they're not able to work with me. They can get a really good start here. There are plenty of other weight loss coaches out there that people can work with. And so that was really the idea. I kind of really felt called to be the person to get the message out there. I think for so long, the messaging, particularly for women, was you need to look at like this, whatever the trendy ideal is right now. And if you don't look like that, then there's something wrong with you. And for some people, the pendulum has actually swung so far in the body positivity movement that they now say, I don't feel like I should lose weight. I feel like people will judge me as being, not feminist or, caving into diet culture if I decide I want to lose weight. And I feel like I'm coming in as a more reasonable, middle of the road kind of messaging, which is, what, you get to live in whatever size body you prefer. Sometimes I like to say it's like, we all get to choose what size meat suit we live this life in, because that's really all it is. Like, we have the agency to choose what we prefer because we prefer it. Maybe because we sleep better, we have better energy, or, we just, feel more comfortable in our bodies. We have fewer aches and pains, things like that. Those are all legitimate reasons to want to change your body or lose weight if you decide you want to do that. So I just felt very much like there was an impact that I needed to make and wanted to make. And this book was a great way to do that.
Yeah, and there, so many people struggling with weight loss, and weight loss is hard, but maintaining is even harder. And you have a book coming out tomorrow, and the title of the book is "How to Lose Weight for the Last Time." Right? That's a very, very interesting topic, because the hardest part is once you lose weight with your hard work and discipline, how you keep it, how you maintain that, how you kind of really kind of don't, you don't go back to the your default. So it's
Mm-hmm.
a very interesting topic, and we're going to get into this. But this is a leadership podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and you said something which was really, really interesting when we were kind of overall thinking about this podcast was lead yourself so that you can lead others by example. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that for, well, I'm just going to speak for people who struggle with overeating and possibly over drinking, but this really applies to anybody who overdoes anything to some sort of detriment, right? Like it could be anything, like working too much, shopping too much, exercising too much. I mean, it can be
Yeah.
anything. But really when we are great leaders for others and we're struggling ourselves with whatever this thing is that we're overdoing, we're not really actually leading ourselves. And so much of leadership involves actually listening to the people that you're leading, right? Like, what are they struggling with? What do they need help with? What's going on for them? What's it like to be them? How can I be of assistance? Well, when we look at our inner self-talk, the way we approach ourselves, it's very often not like that at all. We're not actually asking, like, what do you really need? If anything, what we're trying to do is trying to numb out from the reality of being us. And that's what food and alcohol, for people who drink it, can do for us. It takes the edge off, right? It makes us think about something else. It makes us be able to avoid what the reality is of being us. I always say it's like there's some sort of problem and we're asking food to solve it for us, but we're completely out of touch with what the problem is. And so we just kind of gloss over it, or we're just trying to feel better, which is a reason, like totally understandable pursuit. And it's not a problem until it creates some other problem for you, right? So I think that personal leadership or self-leadership involves building that relationship with yourself, actually being curious and not judgmental of yourself, but curious and open to finding out, what is it really like to be me? What is my experience of my life like? What is it like to be in my body? So many of us are prized for what we can do in our heads, doctors in particular, right? So we just live from the neck up. We don't know what we're feeling. We don't know, like, feeling in terms of what it's like to be in our bodies, the sensations, but also our emotions, totally cut off from all of that. So in order to lead ourselves effectively, we need to know what's going on for us. We need to know what's happening in our bodies. Should I eat right now? Well, I don't know. Let me check. I actually don't have any physical hunger signals right now. That's interesting. So maybe I don't need to eat right now. So many of us have been, for a million reasons, a variety of reasons, essentially trained to not take our body's needs into account. Like, how do you know when to stop eating? Your body will tell you if you listen. How do you know when to start eating? Your body will tell you if you listen. We're all born with this. We just lose that as time goes on. So I think that, one of the problems, particularly with leaders, is that we're so good at meeting the needs of other people. And, we would never let anybody else down, but then we let ourselves down all the time. And we do that in so many different ways. Today, I'm going to eat in this way that really serves my body. But then when we get home, we're like beelining it to the pantry and eating whatever it is. It's kind of like, we would never, if we were leading someone who was, saying one thing and then doing another, we would have serious concerns about that person, being a part of our team. Yet we're doing that to ourselves all the time. So that's, we have to bring the focus back into ourselves. What's actually going on for me? What are my needs, and how can I meet them in a way that is productive for me and helps me to meet my overall goals? And instead of, creating more problems for me. And I think what we think so often with weight loss is like, it's all about denying our needs. I'm hungry, but it doesn't matter. I shouldn't eat. I argue that no, when you figure out how to actually support your body well, you do meet your own needs. You don't need to eat for the hunger that might come, that you're scared you might, you might be hungry later. You don't have to worry about that because you know that you'll meet your own needs, whatever comes up for you in the future. And that's your physical needs and also your emotional needs.
Thank you for that. And so, what I hear you say, Katrina, is that practice what you preach, and leadership is tough. When you are leading, you sometimes intent is okay, sacrifice for others. You take care of others' needs, but sometimes you don't have your me time or your health time. And what I'm hearing you say is that it's important for you to take care of yourself as a leader while you are taking care of others. Like when we get in the plane, I use this example quite frequently, that they ask you to put your mask on before you put that mask on your loved ones. So taking care of yourself. And at IT by Design, we have like 4 pillars of our kind of life plans. And it's like health, family, career, and legacy. That we all have limited times, 168 hours in a week. That kind of balance your 168 hours in terms of priorities. Like put your health at the top, then your family, then your career, and then legacy. And having like that balance, that will make this life vehicle going. Otherwise, it can get into some issues as well. Can you talk about this a little bit more? Like, why do people overeat or drink?
Yeah, it's such a good question because so many of us will say, I know what to do. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
Like it's not, for most people, it's not like they are confused that drinking gallons of soda is a problem. Like, and most people know that, you know what I mean? They know they probably shouldn't do it, yet they find themselves doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So really what it comes down to is, when you think about like what our actions are that we take, right? Like, we can take actions that support maybe weight loss and weight maintenance, or we can take actions that support weight gain and not losing weight, right? Why do we take those actions? Or why do we, sometimes it's inaction. Like, I didn't get up and actually cook myself a supportive meal for dinner. Instead, I just ate, whatever crackers from the pantry or whatever it was, something like that. Like, why do we do what we do? We often think that it's just like whether we're disciplined, like you said, or we're lazy or whatever. But really what it comes down to is we have thoughts and feelings that precede all of our actions. For anybody who might be familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, this will sound familiar to them. I'm not a therapist, but this is a framework that was created by Aaron Beck, who's a psychiatrist that is actually really useful for lots of things, including weight loss. So if you understand that your thoughts, which is really just your interpretation of what's going on in the world, then create your feelings or your emotions. And this is like a chemical cascade kind of a thing that's actually happening when the brains, the brain cells and neurons have a synaptic connection. There's actually a chemical cascade that goes into our bodies. Then we feel something, an emotion, and then that's what's driving us to do what we do, or driving us to not do what we, think we should be doing. So, and I think the easiest way to think about this is if you've ever felt nervous, you have a thought about the thing that you have to go do, and then that butterfly feeling in your stomach and feeling kind of jittery, and maybe you start sweating a little bit, like that's the physiological response to that. So what we have to understand is that when we have been overeating for a while, or eating, and I just define overeating as eating more food than your body needs. It's like, sometimes we're like, but it's not that much, but it still might be too much for your body. Sometimes our expectations around normal amounts of food, like we want to be able to eat a lot. And we have to kind of get over the disappointment of like, no, that's actually, this amount is the right amount of food for someone with my body. We have to understand that there are thoughts and feelings that drive the actions that create the result we don't want. Maybe it's the result that we have right now. Maybe it's, yo-yoing with your weight up and down. And so normally when we're trying to lose weight, what we do is we just try to take different actions. And if we can do those long term, we usually do get the results that we want. I mean, for the most part, if you follow any old weight loss plan, it will probably create some weight loss for you. But the problem is that we either don't want to or can't keep it up, right? So maybe we can white knuckle our way down, and then, as soon as we get to a goal weight, we just start gaining it back again, or we lose a few pounds and gain it and lose a few pounds and gain it, self-sabotaging. But what we don't understand is that in order for us to take the actions that support us, that give us the results that we want, and to do that again and again and again every day, which is what permanent weight loss is, that's maintenance, we have to think and feel differently. We can't rely on our old way of interpreting the world and ourselves and those familiar feelings that we have and expect them to drive a different action. Where you will always go, if we still are thinking and feeling the old way, we will always go back to that old behavior of overeating and then gaining weight again. That's for sure what happened for me. So why are we even doing that? Well, we're human beings. We experience emotions. This is just, you can't escape this. But many of us have been, raised or trained to not address those emotions, to be out of touch from them. This can be, just from our family of origin. It can be from our careers. I mean, I know as a doctor, right, you need to maintain a professional demeanor. You can't fall apart. Even if something really sad or tragic has happened, you need to just stuff it down and hold yourself together, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that most of us don't have any kind of tools or skills that we've developed to process those emotions. We don't know, like, things happen to us in our lives. And for many of us, we learn that the most socially acceptable way to deal with that, or to not have to feel that uncomfortable emotion, is to eat. And for some people, it's drinking alcohol. And for some people, it's other things too, right? We just like zone out in front of Netflix, we stay up too late, like, all those things that we do. And so really what it comes down to is, in order for us to be able to consistently take those actions that we want to take, we also have to know how to manage our emotional lives, like meet those emotional needs, actually learn how to process those emotions in a way that doesn't involve food. So people who don't struggle with overeating, if they're struggling emotionally and you suggested that they eat something, they would be very confused. They would be like, how is that going to help the fact that I'm feeling, sad or whatever it is? Yeah. And so for those of us who emotionally eat, there's been this conflation, right? Like, there's an emotion, food will solve that. And what food really does is it just dampens the feeling. Or some people even find that if they just get really, really full, like overly full, then they're not feeling that emotion anymore. Even though feeling really overly full is uncomfortable too, it's at least a familiar type of discomfort. And so they would rather just feel really overly full than have to deal with these emotions that they don't know what to do with. And so I think it's so easy for us to focus on, how many carbs are you eating? Like, are you doing the macro thing? Like, are you counting calories? What are you doing? That is, something you have to think about a little bit, but this other stuff is what's most important. How can I support myself emotionally? If you're like, if you're like me, this is how I was like, what do you mean emotions? I don't think I have those. I mean, I'm happy. Sometimes I get angry. Sometimes I'm a little sad, like I was so disconnected from what was actually happening for me in my life. I had to really learn what those emotions were and then learn how to support myself through them. The majority of us were never taught as children or young adults how to do that. And that's okay, because we have the opportunity to learn how to do that now.
Yeah, so it comes down to processing your emotions effectively, right? Generous listening to your body, your own body, and then taking the right action. When you listen to that, because as you said, some people will probably eat, drink, or Netflix, or some people shop. And that's the even worse problem to have along with the weight. But what are the few things that people can do immediately that they can lose weight for the last time, or some daily habit strategies that they can adopt? Maybe share an example or two.
Absolutely. So the first thing I would suggest is, people usually can self-identify. They know if they struggle with eating more food, than maybe their body needs, or if they drink more alcohol than they, would like to. And so the first thing that we can do is not from a place of what we should be doing or what's right and what's wrong, but from a place of true, just generous curiosity, offering ourselves that. think of a time when you typically would be reaching for that food or reaching for, the next glass of wine or whatever it is. Like, when would you typically find yourself like settling in on the couch with your snacks or something? And ask yourself to, when that happens, the next time that is happening,
Yeah.
to just pause for a moment. So I like to think of it as like there's a potential space right now between the decision to go get the food and then the eating it part, right? Like before it goes in your mouth,
Yeah.
there's a little potential space there that we want to see if we can open up a little bit to build some awareness around what is happening for me right now. Am I actually physically hungry? If not, okay, what emotion am I feeling? And, it's okay if you don't know exactly what it is right away. Like even if you can just identify, like, it's, it's pretty intense. Like some people will be able to just rate it on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 meaning no emotion at all, just like totally neutral, 10 being a very strong emotion. Maybe you can identify just as like some boredom or restlessness. A lot of people will find that they just feel like they just don't know what to do. So I might as well eat something. Like even if, and we're not saying you can't eat the food or have the alcohol, but can we just find out a little bit more about what the problem is that the food or drink is solving? Like we just maybe even like for 30 seconds, just, at first, right? Not saying you can't have it. You can totally have it, but let's just understand a little bit more why we're doing this.
Pause.
And then,
right.
Yeah, and then once we can identify a little bit more and keep practicing this day after day, maybe we can figure out like what the emotion is. And then maybe we can go, oh, yep, there's that emotion again. Maybe spend 1 minute before we eat it going, you know what, how do I know I'm feeling that? I like to sometimes ask myself that. It's kind of like, okay, how am I feeling? I'm feeling like rejected. Okay, how do I know I'm feeling rejected? Like I use that word, but what does that actually feel like in my body? Well, let me move out of my head into my body and find out, where is that? Is it in my chest? In, the pit of my stomach? Do I feel it like in my shoulders? Sometimes we feel things in our face, our throat, like, and we can feel things all over our bodies. Let's just maybe try to get to know it a little bit more. And just, again, with open curiosity, become aware of what it's like to be us in our bodies. And then maybe the next time we can go to 2 minutes and just, we keep breathing and we just are curious. Is it changing? Is it moving? What's happening? And you can still, you're not telling yourself you can't have it, right? The minute we tell ourselves we can't have it, then we want it even more. And also it's not true. Adults are allowed to do whatever they want to do. So we need to stop telling ourselves we can't have certain things to eat. But then over the course of time, maybe we can expand that even to 5 minutes of staying with that emotion. And maybe over the course of time, we can even find that, you know what, I stayed with the emotion and the emotion's gone now. And you know what, I actually don't even really want to eat the food now. So that's kind of cool versus telling ourselves we can't have it. Instead going, hey, you know what, I just processed this emotion. I just stayed with myself as it worked through my body. And maybe I don't need that anymore. And what could it be like to just not have it and break that habit that we have? So that's one thing. The other thing that I would suggest, and this was like the very first thing that I did that made a huge difference for me in terms of reconnecting to my body, and that was deciding that I was only going to eat if I was physically hungry. And so, if you ever eat for a reason outside of physical hunger, that's emotional eating. And so another way to help ourselves to reconnect to our bodies is when we notice, okay, I'm going to eat now, going, wait, am I actually hungry? Is my body actually asking for food? If the answer is no, if possible, waiting to eat until it is asking for food. And so again, not saying you can't have it, you can have it later, but we're just going to actually let the body's signals play into when we decide to eat. I know for me that in my family growing up, the way you knew that you should eat was what the clock said. You know what I mean? Like if the clock said it was this time, then it was time to eat, whether your body actually wanted food or not. And so this made a huge difference for me. I would, eat snacks or whatever in the office, and then come home and eat dinner again with my family, even though I wasn't hungry at all. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to eat when I'm actually physically hungry. And I lost 10 pounds just doing that. When I first started this final time losing weight, just did that. Made a huge difference, is really a pretty quick win.
So wait, so whenever those emotions are there is that, you feel that need to eat, and always kind of really taking the time to think and see if it's emotional, and then processing your emotions effectively. So what I'm hearing you say, Katrina, is weight can lead to weight loss, and and it's more on so it works. Just last week there was a discussion going on in our leadership panel, and one person shared his overall like his method to spend less money. And he's like, he heard somewhere that if I feel like having my new iPhone, or if there's any new gadget, we're a technology company, people here love gadgets, and they spend a lot of money, their entire paycheck sometimes, on new version of technology. And he's like, one thing that I've learned from Atomic Habits is that just wait for a week before you buy it, the new thing. So I think it works in overall, like even when we get that
It's the same
emotional
thing.
email.
You want to use the part of your brain that is more mature, the prefrontal cortex. That's the part that separates us from animals. It isn't impulse related. It can think about the future. It can think about the past. It can plan. When you're making those impulse decisions to purchase something, to eat something, to drink something, whatever it is, that is more driven by the more primitive parts of our brain, which are just about feeling good right now. And they're kind of like a toddler, right? They just want what they want because they want it. And, like they're not interested in having conversation about it. And we don't really want to let that part of us, be in control too often.
Yeah. And it's more on like even with the emails, right? So there's a training under soft skills that we have is when you get that email and you're emotional about it, you feel like just reacting to that. Rather than react, take your time to respond. Just kind of wait, sleep on it before you
And,
respond.
can I just say that based on what I was talking about, how emotions drive our actions, right? Like, even if you write the same thing, but it's coming from an emotional state that isn't, maybe the most positive,
Yeah.
right? We don't always get the result that we want. So it's best to get yourself into whatever emotional state you would prefer to be in before you write the email. You're saying the same thing, but it's going to come through differently because there's a different emotion driving that action. So it's the exact same thing that we were just talking about right there. 100%
Yeah.
agree.
Yes, and it works. I think that tactic that you just shared, it can be beneficial in many different situations, and healthy living is one of those, where if you can learn this, not only what I'm hearing you say, because this is more from the leadership point of view, that you can be a better leader if you can kind of really grow in that area where emotions are impacting your health or your relationships. And if you can learn this tactic, if you can use this strategy of responding, not reacting, and it can help you in many different aspects of your life.
What I like to say is that, like, our clients come because they want to lose weight, and they do lose weight. But when they leave, they're like, yes, I lost a bunch of weight, but that's not the best part, which is so interesting, right? Because when they came, they felt like that was like the most important thing. But what they say is, my relationships are better. I love my work again. My, just my experience as me in the world is so much better. And so why is that? Because they have now figured out a way to support themselves, right? They know how to manage their thinking. They know how to create the emotions that they want to feel. They know how to process the emotions that maybe they don't like to feel so much. Food is just a separate thing. So, when you eat when you offer your body the nutrition it needs and no more, you're going to lose weight. I mean, that's how it works, And so there's no way that this can't bleed into other areas of your life. Because it's, for this book is called How to Lose Weight for the Last Time. I mean, for anything that you're overdoing, you could substitute that in here. How to stop staying up too late for the last time, how to stop, yelling at your kids for the last time. Like, it's all the same thing. It's like that urge to feel better, that we just want to feel better now.
Yeah, or bad boss for the last time.
Right.
Because you can, the way you show up during your huddles, your meetings, it comes from, so this can lead to overall being able to show up with the right state of mind, being able to, as a leader, no matter what's happening, we have a lot of challenges that we deal with every day. But at the end of the day, if we show up with the positivity, that passion, that compassion, and if you're a happy person, like you're fit, you're not overweight, or you're not over drinking or eating, because person who's over drinking or overeating, they are normally very unhappy with themselves, and they bring that energy to people around them. So if you can be fit, you're happy about your health, whatever it means to you, then that can lead to happiness, that can lead to compassion, that can lead to kind of, you're just a happy person, and you attract more happy people, and the whole environment changes, right? So is there anything else that you would like to share in terms of how to, or anything that you want to share in terms of losing weight for the last time?
Yeah, I actually just want to speak to what you were just saying, because there are actually a lot of people who outwardly look fit, or are at a healthy weight, who still feel very controlled in their minds by food and alcohol. And I think it's important to mention those people too, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it shows on your body. In fact, often the people who struggle with food and alcohol but aren't overweight will feel like people will tell them, oh, you don't have a problem, though. They'll like downplay the problem for themselves. And so I just want to say that it's not uniquely, like when you were saying, like, people who are overweight, like, are unhappy with themselves. I'm like, I think a lot of people are unhappy with themselves just baseline, and we have our different ways of kind of coping with that. I
Yeah.
just want to mention it because there are plenty of people who really feel like a lot of brain chatter around food. Should I have another drink? Oh, I said I wasn't going to, but then I did, and now I'm disappointed in myself. And it's like, it just consumes your energy and your brain space thinking about, like, should I make that thing? And did I eat that? And oh, I ate that thing too much, and now I got to work out to try to compensate. Like, all this stuff that is just not a very pleasant way to live. And I just want to say that the work is really the same in terms of our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with food and alcohol, whether we need to lose weight or not. And I just want to mention that because there are plenty of people who are like, I don't need to lose any weight, but I do want what I call peace and freedom around food. And that means being able to be at the open bar, be at the buffet, or be around all of your like favorite foods and like the most exciting or trigger foods for you or whatever, and just not caring that much. You could eat it and it would taste good and that would be fine, or you could also just as easily not eat it and it's fine. You're not feeling like sad, you're not feeling disappointed, feeling like you're what's wrong with me that I can't have it, or feeling like you're not able to participate like other people can. Like, it just takes away this excessive importance that our brains have put on to food and alcohol. And that allows us to peacefully coexist, right? To just feel free to, there is food, I could eat it, I could not eat it. Let me check. Is my body hungry? Do I need food? And if the answer is no, we're not like, shoot, but I wanted to eat that, like feeling so sorry for ourselves. Instead, just being able to create that coexistence. And so that is, no matter where your body is in terms of size or whatever, that is something that is I think a worthy goal for everybody.
Thank you, Katrina. And where can people go to buy your book, To Be Better Leaders, Lead Themselves Better, and any resources that you can share where people can learn a little bit more about your work? You have done a lot of work in this area. So what are the resources that you would like to share with the viewers where people can go learn more, and also they can, get a copy of your book?
Yeah, thank you. So the book is available anywhere books are sold. So any bookseller, whether it's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your favorite independent bookseller is great. I also narrated the audiobook, and there's a little bit of bonus material on there. So if there's people who prefer to listen to their books, that's available as well on Audible. And then there's actually several free resources on my website, katrinaubellmd.com. And of course, I have my podcast that's free as well, called Weight Loss for Busy Physicians. And like I said, I have a lot of people who are not doctors who listen, so I think you can get a lot out of that as well.
Thank you so much, Katrina, for coming to my show and sharing your work with my viewers. I truly appreciate you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunny. You're so great.